Here we go. Recording in three, two, and one.
Okay. I realize I harp about growing up in Texas, but I there are really four films that kind of show what that's like, and I want to talk about those today. Just amazing.
Awesome. Welcome to episode 183 of Nerdery Murdery.
Big 183. I'm Zig with your nerdery.
And I'm Jeffrey with your Murdery. Welcome to another week of the highs and lows, and the ups and downs, the good and the bad, and the nerd and the murd. Um, if I sound a little sick today, I'm not. Um, I was overserved last night, to quote my friend Johnny from Denton. So, Johnny, I know he's a listener, so I'm giving him some credit here. I was overserved last night.
Thanks for getting our boy drunk, Johnny.
Oh, Johnny didn't. He wasn't here. I'm just quoting him because that's a common phrase for him. It's just the shots were a-flowing last night.
What was you drinking?
So at the club, they're big into Fireball, big into Fireball.
Okay.
And I was just I was out golfing. I had some beers, which you do.
Mhm.
Um, but we got there, and there was a whole group there because a tournament had just finished, and suddenly shots were in our hands.
Oh, nice.
And then there were more, and then there were more. I was definitely overserved last night. So, um, so it was so that's why my voice may be a little the way it is today.
Right on.
Speaking of the club, I have two things, and I know there's some people that hate that I talk about golf, but I don't care. Here we go. Two things happened Thanksgiving week because we were this is after Thanksgiving, just after Thanksgiving for us. For those of you in the future, we're way past Thanksgiving.
Peace.
But I was playing with some people on Saturday after after Thanksgiving. Chelsea was off playing with the girls, and I was playing with some other people, and so I borrowed my in-laws' golf cart. And we had just finished the fourth hole, and I started driving, and I looked down at my scorecard and ran smack into a tree.
Nice.
Head first into a tree. Luckily, no damage, so I don't have to pay for something, but it was pretty silly. Um, the week of Thanksgiving itself, we Chelsea saw a dog on the course, little min pin Chihuahua mix something. Um, tried to catch her, couldn't. We saw her on Thanksgiving morning as we were out, couldn't catch her. Friday night, some people called us and said, "Hey, we know you're trying to catch this dog." Um, because basically the club GM was going to call the police, at which point animal control would come pick her up and she would be put down.
Mhm.
Um, so some people from the club called us and said, "Hey, she's up here asleep on a couch." So we rushed up there, and sure enough, there she was. And because she was asleep, I was able to sit down next to her, put a blanket over her, and we ended up taking her home. The sweetest little dog. Sweetest
I've
little
seen
dog.
pictures. That's not a min pin. That's a North American lap hound.
Yeah. Just so sweet. We named her Mara Jade after the Star Wars character, Luke Skywalker's wife. Um, so sweet. The other dogs didn't they were just, because it was a new dog in the house, they weren't overly happy, but they kind of got used to her. But Chelsea was adamant we could not keep six dogs.
Yeah.
Um, this past Friday night, we had we had posted her on Nextdoor, which is a great app for local communities. And a local retired couple reached out. They had just recently lost their two rescues. They had passed, and they saw the picture. They're like, "Yep, we want to come meet her." And they came over Friday night, and they fell in love with her, so she has a new home.
Yay.
I'm
Did they keep the name?
sad. They did not keep the name. They liked it at first, but they've named her uh, Chica Bonita.
Chica Bonita.
Um,
Sweet.
so they have fallen in love with her. She is just the absolute sweetest dog. I miss her. But they said we can come visit anytime. So I'm going to give it a week or two, let her get settled.
Go over and check her
Don't,
out.
yeah, just to go over and say hey, but just this sweet, sweet couple. I was so happy that she's going to go to a good home. They already texted us, let her know her first night was fine. She just settled in, was real quiet, so it was awesome. I was very, very
Nice.
happy. Um, did you get to check out the mayor of Kingstown? I mentioned it
No.
before. Dude, Paramount Plus, Mayor of Kingstown, Jeremy Renner.
I think I've
Currently
seen an episode or two of it.
3 seasons. There's a fourth in the works right now. Um, Amazing, 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 amazing. I thought I said it before, but I used to watch Oz, and
Hmm.
Oz was a rough show. Oz was definitely one of those shows that if you ever thought you could make it in prison, watch Oz.
Yeah, watch Oz.
You're
You're
gonna
not gonna
find
make
out
it.
that you can't. Mayor of Kingstown is worse. Oh my gosh, it's this town in Michigan that is surrounded by about 10 prisons.
Like Huntsville.
Well, Huntsville's just one prison.
No, no, there's several prisons in and around Huntsville.
Are there?
Yeah.
I thought it was just one. No, these are
Nope.
several different prisons.
Yeah, yeah, you got Walls, you got Gory, you got
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Well, then yes. And what Jeremy Renner is as the mayor of Kingstown. It's not he's not really the mayor. They just call him that. He's the liaison between the town and the prisons, and he tries to keep the peace.
mhm.
Um, Dude, it is rough. It is rough, but it is so good. I highly recommend it. Give that a shot. Give that a shot. Um, and then the last thing I haven't seen it yet. I know Two Geeks and a Microphone have covered it. I want to go see Red One real bad,
Okay.
real bad. Chris Evans, um, J.K. Simmons is in it. The Rock is in it. It looks
Mhm.
so funny.
It's
Um,
a humorous Santa Claus movie. I kind of like it.
yeah, I want to see that one. So I don't know if anybody out there has seen it or not, but anyway, those were the things that I just kind of had on my mind, on my geekdar, if you will.
They're gonna sue us. We keep stealing stuff. I was listening to their show yesterday. They say that we said we were Steven skipping, and I told you maybe we should Jeffrey skip, and you're like, no, it's Steven skipping.
I love stealing things from those guys. Oh, that's the other thing. This is in the past for y'all, but just in case, because I know this episode comes out after we've done this.
Mhm,
If you haven't seen it, we have a three-way crossover that we're doing. I can't wait for it. It's going to be huge. It's with
mhm.
Two Geeks and Microphone and Three Geeky Dads. I don't think anybody is going to be able to get a word in edgewise. Um,
I have made a couple of notes. Just I'm gonna try to get through them real quick.
oh, I've
I'm
been
like,
making I've been making a ton of notes. So what we have done in that episode is starting on one episode, we will be doing V the miniseries from the
Mhm.
80s. The V the miniseries, the original miniseries and the final battle. Then on another episode, we're going to cover the TV series that followed.
Yeah, 1985 series.
And then on our episode, we will cover the re-release, the reboot of V. Um, and ours will be the only one that we have a murdery on.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's going to be a three-way crossover, big time. We talk with these guys over Facebook Messenger and just have some of the funniest conversations. I don't know that anybody's going to get a word in edgewise, but I think it's going to be hysterical and a lot of fun. So those of you who are listening now, if you have not heard it, go back
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
and
it's gonna
listen
be
to it.
absolute chaos.
Listen to their shows, so you can get all three. But I think, yeah, it's going to be chaos and it's going to be so much fun. So
Mhm.
anyway, that is all I had. You got anything for us?
No, no, just kind of chilling, watching stuff, writing
Cool.
up notes, watching V the release series.
I'm not to the release yet. I'm in the TV series that followed the two miniseries, and yes, I've taken lots of notes myself.
Yeah, God, Michael
So
Ironside was great in that series. I really loved him in that series.
I have notes on him. Yes. Yes. All right.
The re-release, not so much.
Well,
So,
don't ruin it.
no, I won't ruin it. I'll save it for the podcast. Today we're talking about four coming of age movies set in Texas.
All right, go for it. Take it out. Take it
Texas.
away.
All right. Um, all but one of these films is a period piece. Um, so it's The Last Picture Show, Dazed and Confused, Skateland, and Dancer Texas Population 81. Dancer Texas Population 81 is the only one that where the movie was made very quickly after the time period it takes. So it's set like a couple of years before the movie came out. Um, Skateland takes place in the early 80s in East Texas. Uh, Dazed and Confused was released in the 90s. It takes place in the 70s. And The Last Picture Show was made in 1971, and it takes place in the 50s in Archer, Texas, which was kind of going through a bust at the time period that it takes place in. Archer, Texas has come back mostly because of Larry McMurtry, the person who wrote it. Matter of fact, that's the one we're going to start with. The Last Picture Show is a 1971 American coming-of-age drama film directed and co-written by Peter Bogdanovich. Adapted from the semi-autobiographical 1966 novel of the same name by Larry McMurtry, the film's ensemble cast include Timothy Bottoms, Jeff Bridges, Ellen Burstyn, Ben Johnson, Cloris Leachman, and Sybil Shepherd. Set in a small town in northern Texas from November 1951 to October 1952, it is a story of two high school seniors and longtime friends, Sonny Crawford, played by Bottoms, and Dwayne Jackson, played by Bridges. The Last Picture Show was theatrically released on October 22nd, 1971 by Columbia Pictures. It was a critical and commercial success, grossing $29 million on a $1.3 million budget, and was nominated for 8 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, Best Director, Best Supporting Actor for Johnson and Bridges, and Best Supporting Actress for Burstyn and Leachman, with Johnson and Leachman winning. As a matter of fact, Cloris Leachman, there's a scene toward the end of the movie, and I think we've got it in our playlist. Cloris Leachman basically freaks out because she's been having an affair with this young stud. And
Right, and
she's married to the
the
older
coach.
basketball coach.
Yes,
Yeah.
to the coach. Yes.
And she freaks out and throws coffee everywhere. And she goes to Peter Bogdanovich, just like, I need to redo that. And he went, no, the fuck you don't. You just won an Oscar. And he was right.
Well, she doesn't just freak out because of the affair. She freaks out at the boy because he's been avoiding her.
Mm-hmm.
And he comes to her because he's sad,
Mm-hmm.
because of a death in the movie, and he comes to her looking for someone to make him feel better, and that's when she loses it at him.
Yeah, she loses. She loses it. Um, her portrayal in that is exceptional. Ben Johnson, who also won the Oscar, who played Sam the Lion. Oh my God. Every old dude in Texas sounds like that.
Yeah.
In 10 years, maybe 20, I'm going to sound like that. It's just, oh my God. It's beautiful. It's epic. It's shot in black and white, so he gets the starkness of that town. My only problem with it, I've been to Archer, Texas. Um, it is not as stark as that.
It was back then.
Well, that's true. That's true. Because it was dying back then.
Right. That whole area was dying because I mean that's the Archer, Jacksboro, Wichita Falls,
Hmm.
all of that area. And they mentioned Wichita Falls a couple of times in the flick. It, it was a dying area. There, they had to go through some revival because that was an oil area.
Yep.
And they were drying up, and so these little towns were dying. This still happens to this day, around Texas. My parents came down for Thanksgiving, and we just ended up talking about um, the area where my stepfather grew up in, which was Lorenzo, Texas, outside of
Lorenzo.
Lubbock.
Yeah.
And that whole Lorenzo, Rawls, Crosbyton, um, all that area is dying. It's
Yeah.
dying off because these were little tiny towns and they didn't have the forethought to combine their resources, combine the schools, and
Hmm.
they're all dying off because it
Yeah.
really probably should have been a county high school out there, but instead they all insisted on having their own and they're all dying off.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, especially when they're based around one industry, which is boom or bust,
Hmm.
which oil is. Oil can be great
Hmm.
for a time, but when it goes out, you need to be on something else.
Right.
That one of the other films we're going to talk about, Skateland, is kind of about that. It's this town that's transitioning away from oil into something else in the early 80s. The last time we had a big oil market, um, well, I say the market crashed. There was plenty of oil on the market. That was the problem.
Mm.
That happened in about 1983, 1984, which is where that film was set. Um, but yeah, it's kind of about that. Now, Wichita Falls and Archer and what was the other town you named?
Jacksboro.
Jacksboro. They're getting a bit of a revitalization now,
Hmm.
because they are quaint and beautiful places to be. So if you guys are ever out in that area, definitely check out Wichita Falls. It's beautiful. Um, the same with Jacksboro and Archer. And unfortunately, Larry McMurtry's used bookstore has closed. He opened a used bookstore that was several warehouses. It finally closed, but it was open for God, 20, 30 years. People used to make a pilgrimage just to go shop there because it was huge. Mostly Westerns because that's what he did, but there was other stuff too. Bogdanovich directed a 1990 sequel called Texasville, which was based on McMurtry's 1987 novel of the same name and featured much of the original film's cast reprising their roles. Texasville failed to match the critical or commercial success of its predecessor, and in 1998, the Library of Congress selected The Last Picture Show for preservation, saying that it's culturally relevant. I would agree with that. Um, again, it's about these two high school seniors that are graduating, um, and they're at the beginning two girlfriends, um, and them trying to basically become adults. And in the 1950s, in a dying Texas town, that's a difficult task. It also revolves around this old dude called Sam the Lion, who owns a movie theater, a pool hall, and a little store in that town. And that's the reason the movie is called The Last Picture Show, because again, this was a boom town at one point. There were several movie theaters. There's only one. That's why it's called The Last Picture Show. That's kind of it revolves around that and the pool hall, kind of that story, because that's what Sam does. Um, and it's about the graduating class of 1952. Um, it's just it's awesome. Everybody gives him shit for being terrible at football in the opening of the film. Like the whole town is mad. It was like, yeah, that tracks. That's very small town Texas. Everybody gives the guys crap. Hey, you guys don't know how to tackle.
Yeah, I've mentioned this before. I mean, because it's true to this day. Um, Texas high school football is big. It's
Yeah.
especially big in smaller towns.
Hmm.
Where we were from in Argyle, um, you could have robbed that town blind on a Friday night because everybody was at the stadium. We traveled, we packed visiting stadiums that we visited because it was big. And I mean, it didn't hurt that we were also consistently in the playoffs. One state at least a couple of times. Um, Matter of fact, Argyle this year moved up to 5A and are in the fourth round of the playoffs right now after moving up to 5A. That's incredible. Um, but
For those of
but
you guys who may not know, the A ranking is the size of the school.
yes, yes. The ranking those rankings are the size of the school, all all based on Allen.
Uh-huh.
Whatever size Allen is, everything goes downward from there.
Which is weird because we had a family farm in Allen. I remember when Allen got a traffic light at a McDonald's and it was a big deal.
It's huge now.
Yeah, Allen is a giant suburb of Dallas now.
Yeah, they're the new stadium that they built for the high school um, uh, cost more than some pro stadiums.
There is
It's incredible.
there's still a road named after my family up there. Curtis
Hmm,
Lane is still up there.
hmm,
It's all houses now. There's no farms.
yeah, but anyway, so I mean, going back to the movie, that's
Yeah,
really, very um, very common in Texas small towns that the high school football is a big deal,
yeah,
and not having a good team is a big deal.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, like grown adults coming up to these teenagers going, "You guys don't know how to tackle."
Hmm.
Like the whole town.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, and it's about that year, their senior year, and them graduating. They all have jobs. They work, they share a car. Um,
See, and that was one of the problems. I had many problems with this movie, but that
okay.
was one of the problems I had with the movie. It was very hard to decipher the timeline,
Hmm.
because you didn't really get a good feel for how much time has passed.
Hmm.
You start the movie, and then later on, they're talking about, what a year it's been.
Hmm.
But you didn't get anything in there. Um, when Jeff Bridges and his buddy, was it Timothy Bottoms,
Yeah, Timothy Bonhams.
went to Mexico.
Yeah.
Um, the way they talked about it, it was almost like they were just going to take a little jaunt across the border. Please understand, those of you who are not from Texas, from Wichita Falls to the Mexico border is far.
Yeah, it's like 800
You're
miles, man.
Yeah, you're not getting there quick. You're not getting there in a couple of hours.
No.
You're going to go through far, desolate wasteland to get down to Mexico, and they went in that beat up, rundown car,
Hmm.
and it almost seemed like they were there and back the next day. That's
Yeah.
really how it
No, no,
felt
they were
in the movie.
gone. They were probably gone a week, week and a half,
Yeah,
because it's 2 days to get down there.
right.
I
Uh,
mean, even
eh,
when you're young, driving straight through, which,
well, back then it would have been. Now it's not 2 days. You can get there in a day now.
yeah. But
Um,
1951,
yes, when the speed limit was not 70, 75 all the way down there. Yeah,
yeah, and you had to go through some tiny ass little towns.
yes. But just the way the movie made it feel, it
Uh-huh.
almost made it feel like it was an overnight jaunt.
Yeah. And
And so I kind of had a problem with
I
that.
think that's on Bogdanovich, because I'm relatively certain that Larry McMurtry probably told him, dude, it took us we when we left, it was a 2 week jaunt, because we had to stay down there and then come back up and of course I'm sure they stayed down there a few days.
Well, yeah, they stayed down there, they drank, they got hookers, and
Uh-huh. Yeah, because they went to Boys Town. That's what
yes,
that's what dudes used to do in Texas. There are brothels that line the Texas Mexico border.
yes,
Those towns.
yes.
They call them boys towns. The brothels are outside of the city proper. They are regulated by the Mexican government and have been since all of the 20th
Oh,
century.
I bet you they're now regulated by the cartel.
You think so?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those border towns, I think I've mentioned this before. There's closest to us, there are three entrances into Mexico.
Hmm.
There's Matamoros,
Uh-huh.
Reynoso,
Right. So
and Progreso Nuevo, or Nuevo Progreso, whichever way that
yeah,
goes.
new Progresso.
Um, Everybody here will tell you, if you go into Mexico, you go through Progreso. You do not
Oh,
go through Matamoros or Reynoso.
oh
They're
man,
not,
Matamoros has been tough for 30, 40
yeah,
years.
they're not safe. Progresso is completely cartel run, and they like having the American dollar come across, and
So they don't mess with you.
they love the Winter Texans because the Winter
Yeah.
Texans spend money.
Yeah.
So the cartel keep Progresso safe.
Yeah,
Um, the cartel runs a lot of the border, so I would bet you they're not government run anymore. They're probably cartel run.
cartel run.
Yeah, I'm speculating, of course, but yeah,
Yeah,
I think so.
yeah. Well, I mean, it, Progresso's the place to go. Oh man. Um, yeah. So they go down to Mexico. These two guys, they go down to Mexico. I'm assuming this is after graduation. I'm thinking that's their little senior trips. The two of them go down there, and they've been working, so they've got money. They come back, and the guy that owned the parts of the town has died. Sam the Lion. This is Ben Johnson's character. Um, and they basically come back just in time for his funeral. They didn't even know he was dead because they had been on the road. Um, those scenes are beautiful. And again, that's a around that time you got the Cloris Leachman thing. It's just lovely. I just watched this the other day too. My only problem with this film, it's not that it was in black and white because it's beautifully shot in black and white. I think I'm with you. The problem with this film is it jumps around a little bit. You're not really
or it
sure.
feels like it, and
Yeah,
you're not really sure how much time has passed.
yeah. It's not really tracking it. And
No.
if they just give it a title card, probably would have helped. 2 weeks later, 6 months later.
Well, or even some sort of dialogue to
Yeah,
give you a better idea how much time has
yeah.
passed.
Um, Other than that, I love everybody in this movie. The dialogue is pretty good. I think it's brilliant. I understand why Sam Johnson and of course Leachman got the Oscar. What do you got any other problems with this movie? Is it
Yeah, I was bored. The movie bored me
too
to
slow?
tears. Yeah, it was way too slow. This movie took me 3 days to get through,
Ugh.
because I'd have to stop and move on. And I'm like, oh my God, does this pick up somewhere?
Yeah.
There
And
was a
it's
lot.
the movie when it was released, it was so salacious because of the pool scene.
Yeah, yeah.
Because there was full frontal nudity in the pool scene, both men and women.
Um, it was very slow for me. I do understand why it won the Academy Awards. It did. There was some. It is very very well shot.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
I the acting to me, there were some people in there that I didn't think could act their way out of a paper bag.
Sybil Shepherd.
Cloris Leachman is not one of them. Sybil Shepherd was one of them.
Mhm.
Jeff Bridges, I didn't think could act real well in this.
I know, and I love Jeff Bridges,
I
but
do too.
he was not good in this.
No, he was not.
Timothy
Um,
Bottoms was
Timothy
great.
Bottoms was very good. Sam the Lion was outstanding. And it's funny because I watched Sam the Lion and I saw my step grandfather. The
Uh-huh.
way he would crouch down to smoke his
Uh-huh.
cigarette
Uh-huh.
was just like my step grandfather used to sit outside on the porch and he'd crouch down to where he's basically he's just on his feet, but he's
Yeah.
crouched all the way down with his butt
Yeah.
off the ground,
Yeah.
smoking his cigarette, and that's how he did.
Uh-huh.
Um, it's a very good period piece and really does show in very good detail a Texas town that's dying.
Hmm.
And so I do understand the awards it got. Just for me, it was very difficult to watch because it was very slow and just it didn't have enough action for me.
It's
Um,
none of action.
it didn't move.
And a
It
guy
didn't.
gets his eye gouged out.
Yeah, not gouged out because he recovers from that.
Yeah, but it's his
It's
eye's still
cut.
messed up.
Yeah, yeah, his eyes messed up. That was another thing. It didn't make any sense to me. So Timothy Bottoms and Sybil Shepherd run off to Oklahoma, get married,
Hmm.
come back, and her parents are pissed
Uh-huh.
and just separate them. Do they force them to get a divorce? Do they just keep them apart? It wasn't really clear what happened.
I've actually heard in family lore, apparently that shit happened a lot. And
Interesting.
basically it was just like, no, y'all can't be together unless there's a baby. Y'all need to stay apart. And
Yeah.
The
it, it,
parents basically can get it annulled.
and maybe that's what it was, but that
Yeah.
wasn't clear in the movie. It
No.
wasn't very clear what happened to it. They went off, they got married, they got in trouble. There was nothing else ever said
Yeah.
about it.
That's how my grandparents got married.
So, so yeah, that's just for me on this. The last picture show, I'd never watch it again. I'll be
Mhm.
honest with you. I'm glad I did see it because I've known about it for years, and I knew about Texasville. I actually completely forgotten about it until you just mentioned it. Um,
I think Texasville's a better film.
is
I'm gonna
it?
be honest. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Well, it's a color. Although, much like the Tech Last Picture Show, it is also set like 20 years after the Tech Last Picture Show. Even though it came out
mhm,
in 1990, it's set in like the late 70s, early 80s.
mm. I may have to give Texasville a watch just to see it, but like I said, I'm glad I watched it because I knew it was a very controversial movie because
Mhm.
of the nudity in it and the
Mhm.
overt sex scenes for the time. I mean, geez,
Jeffrey,
it's tame
what do
compared to
people do
now.
in small towns?
They farm and they fuck.
Thank you. You say that it's like, oh, these little small. No, no, there's nothing to do. You get fucked
Um,
up and you fuck and you farm. That's what you do.
not to put down anybody in a farming community. That's just that's
It's true.
it can it certainly can be, but I knew it was controversial because of the nudity, the sex scenes,
Mhm.
um, and things like that. So I'd always heard that. I just never watched it. So I mean, this was my first time to watch it. It will
What
also
about
be my last time.
what about that soundtrack? Mm.
Eh,
Okay.
not
I
my
see.
thing.
I like old. People are like, man, I thought you hated country western. No, no, no. I like it. I just like the really old stuff. Oh my God.
I could give her take on it. So, but yeah. So there you go.
Beautiful. The next film on our list is Dazed and Confused.
So before we get into Dazed and Confused, I'm going to say this about that. I could not stream it, so I didn't watch it. However, I've watched it before
Yeah.
many, 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 many years ago, so I am at least familiar enough with it that, this was Matthew McConaughey's debut.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah, he
and
was supposed to be in like three scenes and he stole the show and yeah.
right, and it's become his movie
Yeah.
now. So anyway, so my memory of it is from the clips I watched that you posted and watching it years ago. So with that, continue.
Dazed and Confused is a 1993 American coming-of-age comedy film written and directed by Richard Linklater. The film follows a variety of teenagers on their last day of school in Austin, Texas in 1976. The film has no single protagonist or central conflict. Rather, it follows interconnected plot threads among different social groups and characters, such as the rising ninth graders undergoing hazing rituals, a football star's refusal to sign a clean living pledge to his coach, and various characters hanging out at a pool hall. The film features a large ensemble cast of actors who would later become stars, including Jason London, Ben Affleck, Mia, Mila Jovovich, Cole Hauser, Parker Posey, Adam Goldberg, Matthew McConaughey, Nikki Kratt, Joey Lauren Adams, and Rory Cochrane.
That football player that's got to sign the contract,
Mm-hmm.
I never realized it till I was watching the clips.
Mm-hmm.
He plays that exact same character in Friends.
Oh yeah,
It may be a different name, of course, but
Adam
his
Goldberg.
yeah, Adam Goldberg, his mannerisms, the way he talks and the
Yeah,
things he says, he plays the same character in Friends. And
as
and
a
I
creepy
I
roommate.
never realized that
Yeah.
until I was watching the clip.
Uh,
Um, and I think that was intentional.
mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. They were going for that. Um, Linklater had originally planned to make a teen film after he did Slacker. Slacker caught the attention of Universal Pictures producer Jim Jacks, who secured $6 million for Linklater's next feature. And Linklater drew heavily on his adolescence in Huntsville to write the script, lifting the names of several people from his hometown for the characters. Most actors cast for the film were undiscovered talents, including Matt McConaughey, who became the film's breakout star. Linklater shot the film around Austin with several members of his crew from Slacker. The actors were encouraged to improvise and develop their own characters with some writing extra scenes. Linkletter gathered several 1970s rock songs for the soundtrack, which made up a significant portion of the film's budget. The picture was marketed by Gramercy Pictures as a stoner film, to Linkletter's dismay. Um, Kids in the 70s, everybody smoked weed, at least in Texas. In the 70s, everyone smoked weed. All
No,
of your kids, all your parents, all your grandparents, they all smoked weed in the 70s.
no,
That's what they did. We
no.
didn't do it as much in the 80s because it was hard to come by. That is the only reason we didn't do it that much in the 80s.
So back up. You mean teens in the 70s?
Yes,
Because
yes.
we were kids in the 70s.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I mean. Like anybody over like 12 or 13 smoked weed.
Gotcha. Okay.
All of them. And if people were like, it's a stoner film, everybody's high. Yeah, everybody was high back then. They just were. And when I say everybody, I mean like 85%.
Mhm.
85%. And again, the only reason it wasn't that big in the 80s is because they cracked down on it and we couldn't get it. But like in the early 80s, it was the same way. But by the time we came along, me and Jeffrey, it wasn't as readily available, so it wasn't as big of a thing. We were more drinkers than the kids in the 70s. Because we didn't have access to weed, basically. I mean, sociologically, that's why that happened. I'm not saying it wasn't around, it just wasn't as prevalent, but like it was everybody. So and this film reflects that. That bothers a lot of people, but in hindsight, that's what happened. That's what you should document. It's like the that last picture show. It's a small dying town. These teenagers are out there carousing because there's nothing else to do. The movie theater's closing. The pool hall is the only thing left, and it's about to close because Sam the Lion left it to one of the kids.
Well, another thing from Dazed and Confused that they show, and I don't know if this was something that happened other places or whatnot, but it certainly happened in Fort Worth, Texas, and in
Yeah, it did.
Arlington, Texas, cruising,
Uh-huh.
cruising the buoy, cruising the Cooper.
Yeah, Cruise the Bowie
Those
and Cruise the Cooper.
those were the two things, and at one point, it got so bad they had police stationed along those streets.
Uh-huh.
And if a car passed by the same spot more than three times, more than two times, or more than three times in an hour,
Yeah.
they would get pulled over and get a
Yeah.
ticket for cruising,
Yeah.
because it was just
That's why it
causing.
stopped.
Yeah, that's exactly why it stopped. But that was a big thing in
Hmm.
the 80s was cruising the buoy and cruising Cooper, and they do that in Dazed and Confused. They're
Yeah.
cruising a street.
Yeah. They cruise, go up and down. Everybody meets up in different parking lots to do stuff. What's really sad is it kind of hurts some of those businesses because some of those
Hmm.
businesses catered to that cruising. A little place where they can stop and get a burger, or play some pool, arcades. Hey, let's go up to so and so on the buoy. Hey, let's go see a movie.
Hmm.
That movie theater closed.
Hmm.
Why? Well, because the kids weren't cruising up and down it. It ended up becoming a club called Fat Albert's later on. Or
Yeah,
no, that was in front of the movie theater.
yeah. It was in front of the movie theater.
Yeah,
Fat Alps was
KPA's.
right on the street.
But yeah, it shows that quite succinctly, and the way that those kids worked on their cars and got their cars set up, and it was like peacocks preening. That's what those cars were, and and it was amazing.
See, and the funny thing about Dazed and Confused, don't get me wrong, I do not hate this movie. I don't want to portray, I don't want to
Yeah,
have anybody think that. Um, for me, and I know this is going to be highly controversial, I would rather watch Hollywood Nights.
Hollywood Nights.
With not Bill Paxton, the other guy that ever Robert Wool.
Yeah.
Robert Wool.
Oh yeah, I've seen this.
I'd much rather watch Hollywood Nights.
Yeah.
Uh,
1980. Yeah.
yep, yep. I think it's a
Fran
funnier
Drescher.
movie. I think it's a yes, Fran Drescher's in it. I think that's a funnier movie. I enjoy that one a lot more than Dazed and Confused. Dazed and Confused just is a myth for me. I don't hate it, but I don't really like it. So yeah, I that's where I go.
Of the films in this list, Days of the Confused is my least favorite.
Yeah, um,
Um,
I
the whole
Holly,
idea of the hazing and the paddling and things like that.
yeah,
I yes, that happened, but it wasn't nearly as bad as as a lot of people uh, portrayed it to be, or at least not when we came along. Again, I'm also speaking from an experience that was 10 years after this.
hmm
So, um, this one this one lady that the incoming seniors know, a girl, her kid brother, he's about to be hazed because he's about to be an incoming freshman. So, they basically grab him, they give him a light paddling, and then pop him in the car and is like, "Come on, you're coming with us," because they thought he comported himself well. So he got to ride with the cool kids for a night um before his freshman year. Um, I and got to do some cruising, And so there's a little of that. I was that little guy because again, all my friends were older and taller.
hmm
I got to be a mascot a lot. It's how I got to be friends with Jeffrey. But it does kind of capture that growing up in Texas. This is not a dying town. This takes place in Austin. Austin, that's our capital. A lot of stuff happens down in Austin. It's big, it's cool, it's fun. Um, Weird. There's a big push to
keep Austin weird.
keep Austin weird. Um, Linkletter also had wanted to do a teenage rock and roll spree. And they made a movie a few years before called Fandango, which was based on a ZZ Top film with uh, Chad Nelson, I think Kevin Costner as well. Um, it wasn't a big film, but it takes place in South Texas about them basically traveling down to Mexico. Um, but it's not nearly as fun as this. It has more of a Fandango has more of a last picture show feel than Dazed and Confused does. Linkletter saw that and wanted to make this basically a movie about cruising in the 70s. And the film changed over time. Like O'Banion had a bigger role, but Ben Affleck had to go do something else. So he was only available for a few days. So O'Banion just got to kind of be the bad guy. Um, Somebody else was supposed to do a lot more scenes. One of the friends they had, the one in the overalls, I can't remember that actor's name, but he basically wasn't able to do the thing. So some of those lines were basically just given to Matthew McConaughey, and that's how he blew up. Matthew McConaughey is basically impersonating his older brother, Rooster, um, who is a real person. Um, I think his name is actually Rooster, which is not uncommon in Texas. Like I grew up with a kid named Peanuts. That's his government name.
It's all
Um,
right. I grew up with a couple of kids named Larangelo and Arangelo.
yeah, lemon jello and orange jello. Yeah, I
Yes,
know
they lived just down
Lorangelo
the
and
street.
Lorangelo.
They lived just down the street from us, and it
Yeah.
was orange jello and yellow and lemon jello, and it was
Uh-huh.
Orangelo and Jamon and Lamangelo.
That's right. They were twins.
No, no, one was older than the other.
One was older than the other.
Yeah.
I thought they were twins.
Uh-uh. Uh-uh.
Anyway, they're Fort Worth lore. Um, but yeah, it's not that uncommon. So anyway, so he channels his brother, and he's sitting in the car, and they're like, "Okay, we're gonna roll." And he's like, "Give me a second." He's like, "What's Wooderson about?" He's about his car. He's about girls. He's about weed and good tunes on the radio. I got 3 out of the 4. So all right, all right, all right, and that became famous.
He
And
even
he
he did that during I don't remember if he's only won one Academy Award for Best Actor or supporting or if he's won multiple. But anyway, there was at least one that he did when he was accepting his award. He ended it with saying, All right, all right, all
All
right.
right. I got tunes on. Slater's rolling up a bowl or rolling up a joint. I'm in my car. 3 out of 4 ain't bad, baby. So that was the internal monologue going on in Wooderson's mind. Wooderson's a creep. It's, I love these high school girls. I
Because
keep
I
getting
keep
older,
getting
they
older.
stay the same.
Yeah.
And oh my God, we all knew that guy.
Oh,
We
yes.
all knew that
Oh,
guy.
yeah. Yeah. I very well remember from my freshman year
Yeah.
the guy that made it his goal
Uh-huh.
every single year of high school that he would date and dump a freshman
Uh-huh.
every year.
Every
And
year.
and he accomplished his goal.
Yes, he did. Knew that guy. Oh my God. Yeah. I it's about so Linkletter got a lot of his crew together that he'd run around with. And again, he based a lot of the story on the stuff that happened to him in school and in Huntsville. And he also said it in the 70s, so it would be something that people could do a touchstone to. Plus, he thought it was interesting to do a period piece for the 1970s because it wasn't really being done at the time. A lot of the casting got done in Austin and New York and Los Angeles. Vince Vaughn was almost cast to play Albanian before they cast Ben Affleck, um, which I thought was really, really funny. They did discover Wiley Wiggins due to his name and long hair. And of course, Linkletter knew him because he was a friend of his. He was part of that Austin Film Society. And Wiley Wiggins, who plays Mitch in the film, Wiley Wiggins looks like he's 12, 13. Wiley Wiggins is our age, man. He was like 24 when he made that, but he looks like a little kid. Um, eh, just just fun. Um, they started shooting on July of 1992. The cast lodged at the Crest Hotel, Congress Avenue. According to Affleck, the party environment at the hotel mirrored the film itself, just letting all these 19-year-olds hang out and get drunk and get stoned and run around the hotel and cause trouble. Uh, so it kind of sounded like uh, a good time. It's a fun movie. Again, I'm with Jeffrey. This is not my favorite one.
Mm-mm.
Um, I've got a lot of notes on Dazed and Confused, but I really kind of want to talk about Skateland.
And
Um,
this one, I all I could watch was the clips. I could not get it anywhere online.
okay, I checked today. Skateland is not available for streaming right now.
Nope.
But I fully expect by the time this airs, it probably will be. Because I used to watch this all the time, just because it's eh, okay. This so this story takes place in a small Texas town in 1983. The film follows a 19-year-old boy named Richie Wheeler who spends most of his time at the local roller rink where he works and hangs out with his friends. Brent Burkhart, played by Heath Freeman, Brent's sister Michelle, and Kenny Crawford. Richie is struggling to try to figure out his future, what he wants to do with his life, and if he wants to go to college. When a tragedy occurs in Richie's life, he is forced to make these decisions. This was listed as an iconic tribute to a culture, place, and state of mind that defined small town America in the early 1980s. It is a universal moment in time where everyone you know to be true starts fading, or everything you know to be true starts fading. The story is personal yet familiar, set against a visually arresting landscape of music and vistas of Americana. That's basically what's on the back of the box. Skateland is a 2010 American drama film written and directed by Anthony Burns and stars Shiloh Fernandez, Ashley Greene, Heath Freeman, Brett Cullen, Melinda McGraw, and Taylor Hanley. It premiered at the Sundance Film Festival in January 2010, and the film was released in the United States, freestyle releasing on May 13th, 2011. Principal photography took place in Texas and Louisiana from October of 2008 to December of 2009. It takes place around oh my God, what's the lake? The only natural lake in Texas. It's half in
Cato.
Louisiana. Hmm?
Cato?
Yeah, Lake
Oh,
Caddo.
yeah, Kato.
Yeah, it's actually shot on Lake Caddo. That's why they filmed it on both sides. Um, oh, one kid's got a lake house and they go hang out there. Um, so this is a town that is transitioning from being an oil boom town to a suburban town, like a some cattle lake. So it's like becoming a suburb of Beaumont, essentially. Um, so it has that feel like there's still some guys that are working oil and stuff. The 19-year-old kid has a friend who's a little bit older who had gone off to do motorcycle racing but got his knee injured. So he comes back, and in the intervening time, he had bought a an El Camino, but it was a special El Camino. It was like the Firebird version of an El Camino. Trying to remember the name because they talk about it a lot. Damn it.
I'll look it
I
up.
had
You
it in
keep
my
going.
notes too.
I'll look it up. You
Yeah.
keep going.
But it was in the early 80s they did this. They it had a special insignia on the front. And they run around town cruising. Of course, the kid works in the skating rink. Um, his friend's younger sister, he's kind of enamored with, but he doesn't want his friend to know because he feels like he's betrayed him.
Is it the Pontiac version, the El Catalina?
Doesn't sound right.
Okay.
But it had like a knight's head on the front of it.
Okay. I'm still looking.
Um, but I seem to remember these vehicles and them being really big in the early 80s. They didn't stay around long because again, it was just an El Camino. But so his friend comes back to town. The kid's trying to figure out what he wants to do. He's really in love with his buddy's younger sister. His buddy is dealing with these other punk kids in town, and they keep doing races because they want to beat his special El Camino. And and he ends up getting wrecked and getting killed. And this kid's the protagonist. His entire life gets turned upside down when that happens. He doesn't know what to do because he thought he was just going to be able to cruise with his buddy the rest of his life. But again, he's 19. He'd graduated like a year earlier, but he had a job, so he wasn't pushing to go to college. He'd been working at the skating rink. Well, the skating rink is about to close because they're doing a land development deal there. It's about to become suburbs.
Looks like it's
Um,
just called the El Camino Royal Knight.
yes,
So there you go.
they just call it the Royal Knight.
That's what I'm finding. They called it the El Camino Royal Knight.
That's it. Yeah. So it's this beautiful, beautiful looking vehicle again from the early 80s. Um, because this takes place in 1983. But yeah, it was a great car, but yeah, it ends up getting rolled and killing the guy. Yeah, that's it. It's the Royal Knight. Um, but and I think it's because this movie takes place closer to when we grew up. Skateland hooks me more than Dazed and Confused does. Because Dazed and Confused was the kids that were older than us, or everybody's older brother or cousin. That wasn't us. We didn't get to participate in all of that. Um, Skateland, 1983. Yeah, I graduated in 1991, but I remember 1983 pretty good. I remember what the high school kids were like in 1983. It's this. Um, what do they call them? Generation Jones, I think is a the tag they use for those guys because they're
Hmm.
not quite Gen X, but they're not quite baby boomers either. Um, it's that coupled with the fact that this kid is basically going through a period of time where he doesn't know what he's going to do. Yes, is he working? Yes, it's groovy. Um, he's got a job. He's got a kind of a great life. He's got this budding romance with his buddy's younger sister, but it's still kind of um, platonic. Um, But yeah, it's amazing. It's fascinating. She just got a job in the new mall that's being built and in the music store, and it has the trappings of what I remember. The guys all have Camaro hair. Remember Camaro hair?
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, it's a mullet that's feathered on both sides.
Hmm.
It's just beautiful. It's one of those ones that I wish you could have seen because I think you really would have appreciated. Not only that, the skating rink scenes are incredible because it actually looks like a skating rink from the 1980s.
Yeah, let me know when you see this one
Yeah.
available, because like I said, it wasn't even available for purchase.
No, yeah, you couldn't
You
even buy it.
you
But
couldn't get it at all.
I
So
think 3 or 4 months ago when I was writing these notes, that's the only one I really wanted to watch.
yeah.
So that's the first one I put on. I was like, oh yes, Skateland. Bow, 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 bow.
Well,
Plus,
and it, go ahead.
you get beautiful shots of Lake Caddo too.
Well, and in the 80s, it, it it's somewhat made a revival, but not like it was in the 80s. S Skating rinks were big,
Yes.
big, 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 which is interesting. Um, there was always people there. Lots of music, the arcades, and it was a hangout place.
Hmm.
I remember my mom would drop me off at Skate Whirl in Wichita Falls,
Okay.
and I could, spend an afternoon there very cheaply. Matter of
Yeah.
fact, she'd, leave me with money so I could buy food, play video games, whatever, but she'd drop me off so I could spend a few hours there. I would go out to Phoenix to stay with my grandparents over the summer, and there was a skate
Skating rink.
a skating rink in Phoenix that they took me to, which was amazing. That skate rink was amazing. Um, and then by the time I moved to Fort Worth, skating rinks were on their decline,
Hmm.
and there was Rollerland and Rollerland West. Rollerland in Wedgwood, Rollerland West over by Ridgemore Mall,
Hmm.
but they were on their decline.
Yeah. Matter of fact, the original Rollerland ended up closing
Yes,
in 85, 86, something like that.
something
Rollerland
like
West is
something like
still
that.
around.
Yeah,
Matter of fact, in our TikToks, occasionally you will see pictures of Rollerland West.
yeah.
And if you wanted to go far west, you could go to Silver Wheel, which is but I'm from the west side.
Hmm.
Jeffrey is also from the west side, but he was more southwest.
Yeah, yeah. I was in the Wedgwood area, which was much more south.
Mhm. Great
But
little,
but yeah, I'd like to see it. From the clips I saw, it made me think of Fast Times at Ridgemont High,
yes,
One Crazy Summer,
yes,
um, the
yeah,
movies
well,
of
more
that
serious
ilk.
tone.
Right.
Well, okay,
I
like
could tell that
Yeah, Fast Times at
because
Ridgemore High had a pretty serious
you
tone too.
did have a clip of the tragedy.
Hmm.
Um, so I got to see at least that. I would like to at least watch it. The music sounded incredible from the clips that I saw. So
Yeah,
this one, let me know when it's
when it pops
available
up.
because
Yeah,
I'd like to see it.
yeah, I checked it this morning. It's not popping up. I'll tell you, the next film it's available on
Plex.
Plex. Yeah, Plex, and I think Roku too. Um, Dancer, Texas, Pop 81. It's a 1998 comedy drama film starring Breckin Meyer, Peter Fasinelli, Eddie Mills, and Ethan Embry.
Before you continue on, let me interject one thing.
Hmm.
I don't think Breckenmeyer, not this movie specifically, um, I don't think Breckenmeyer gets enough airplay.
Oh hell no, he is
Um,
fucking phenomenal, and no, and people sleep on his ass.
I loved him in Road Trip.
Uh-huh.
Um, I loved him in this movie. I don't know that I have seen him in a movie where I have not loved him.
Yeah, people sleep on Breckin Meyer, and I don't
Yeah,
know why.
yeah.
That series that he did with oh God, they were lawyers. Franklin and Bash. He
Oh
did
yeah,
it
yeah,
with.
yeah, 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 yeah.
He was great in that.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, but he is great in this. The town or the film opens with the four guys, which I have the scene of, sitting in the middle of the road in lawn chairs, talking about how they'd sent this letter to the Rand McNally Corporation to talk up their town. Um, it's four of them. They are the graduating class
Yep.
of that year, and it takes place a couple of years before the film was released, so it's in the 90s. But I mean, they are West Texas. They're outside of El Paso, which is far away from us. Um, and it's about these kids again. It's growing up. It's, are they going to be able to get out of town? Are they going to be able to go to school? Um, they made a
Well,
pact.
and this is another movie that is very centralized around
Hmm.
farming or ranching
Uh-huh.
and oil.
Uh-huh. Ranching, farming, and oil. Um, Dancer, Texas does not exist.
Right.
Um, it's mostly about Fort Davis and the other little towns around it. Alpine, although Alpine's got a college out there.
Hmm.
Hollis Chicona of the Austin Chronicle gave a positive review, praising the cast, writing, and cinematography. Chicona wrote, "There are so many captivating characters, so many funny moments, and so much sweet affection in this movie. Its ending comes as a sorrowful leaving, taking. You're tempted to wave goodbye to it, and you have a hanky to wave. So much the better, and you will sit in your seat and wait for it to finish." I kind of like the way they put that. It's like, oh my God, you really love this film. Um, uh, Someone said there's never been an American comedy that captured the unique texture of small town life without condescending to its characters. Product of such a milieu, director McCandless understands that a non-judgmental approach is key to such a story's success. In that spirit, he highlights rather than conceals the idiosyncratic personalities, dialect, and humor of the dozen or so characters. So, Dancer, Texas has a population of 81 people. The graduating class is four dudes, the biggest they've had in 20 years.
Hmm.
Um, and it's all about them. And they talk about how they're going to go to Los Angeles and get the hell out of tiny ass little Dancer, Texas. I'm not going to give you more away. Go out and watch the movie. It is for free. You said Tubi, is that right?
I can't remember if I watched it on Plex or Roku. It may
Yeah,
have been
it's I
Roku.
can tell you it's on Roku right now because I went and checked it this morning. I'm probably going to watch that when we get done recording these episodes because I didn't get a chance to see it when I was making my notes. I was like, oh God, I got to do Dancer, but I'd seen it like a few years earlier. Um, so it wasn't quite as fresh in my mind. Um, or it was fresher in my mind than some of the other ones. Like Skateland. Or no, like The Last Picture Show, because it's been a while since I've seen that. I did not watch that until recently. But yeah, Dancer, Texas is it's beautiful. It is also about coming of age in Texas. Again, unlike Skateland, which is was a small town, it is now a suburb connected to a big city. Uh, Dazed and Confused, which takes place in a big city in Austin, Texas, which is a big city. Uh, this is another one of those small towns like Archer. Matter of fact, Dancer is smaller than Archer or Archer City. Although I don't think that's actually the name of the town in. Did they ever say the name of the town in Last Picture Show?
I don't recall if they did. Maybe, but I
Yeah.
don't recall.
Either way,
I remember them mentioning Wichita Falls
yeah,
multiple
yeah,
times.
because that's the big city that they
Yeah,
go
that
to.
was the big city. So, but I don't know that they ever said Archer. I don't remember.
Um, yeah, so it's Dancer is smaller than that. It's the title of the film is Dancer, Texas Pop 81. That's the population of this tiny little town, and there are towns out there that are like this. Especially out in West Texas. Most of the people live um east of a certain line here. Like something like 75% of the population lives east of a line, and the other 25 live to the west of it. And to the west of it, you also have Amarillo, Lubbock, and Midland, which are large cities. Well, large-ish. So everybody else, then that takes up like 10% of the population. So the 2% live out in the middle of nowhere. That's who lives in these little towns. Um, so it it encapsulates that. Everybody is proud of these four boys because they're the biggest graduating class they've had in a long time. Um, they want to see them to go do something, but they're afraid they're not going to be able to. And throughout the movie, everybody in town is telling them, you need to get out now, otherwise you are never going to get out.
Right.
Or you're never getting out of here. You've stayed too long.
Well, and that's the central theme of the movie is the four of them have this pact to go to Los Angeles, and it's really centralized about, will any of them get to leave?
Yeah,
Because each one of them has something that's potentially keeping them
yeah.
behind.
Something that's holding them there. And they all have different desires on why they're going to Los Angeles.
Hmm.
I think in one case, he just wants to see a big city.
Right.
Um, but yeah, it's like a little ranching town. It's oh my God,
And
ranch and
oil.
oil. Yeah,
And
ranch
oil.
and
Yep.
oil. It's brilliant. It's beautiful. You guys just watch this one. I
So
can't.
let me say this about that. When it comes to movies and music lists and things like that, Zig and I have varied opinions, and I'm sure those of you fans out there that listen to these and then get to decide whether Zig was right or whether I was right, and it's usually me. Um, I'm kidding, but not having been able to watch all four of these movies recently, I mean, because Dazed and Confused I watched a long time ago, and not
Yeah.
having been able to watch Skateland at all. I've heard about Dancer Texas before. I've never watched it until 3 days ago,
Hmm.
4 days ago now, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe it's what it was. But anyway, um,
Yeah. I think it became available December 1st. So
I will say this about Dancer Texas. I'm sorry I've never seen it before. I loved it. I loved every
mhm.
second of it. It was a brilliant movie, very well done. Like I said, Breckenmeyer is highly underrated. Um, I love these kids, the things they do, the things that they do throughout the movie, the struggles that they go through. The one kid is struggling with the fact that his father is very aloof and distant, and how he deals with that. The one kid whose father is a big drunk,
Mhm.
how he deals with that. Breckin Meyer's character, how he deals with having to care for his grandfather, and is he going to be able to leave because of that? Um, the other kid, I'm trying to remember what I can't remember really the other kid why he was going to stay behind. But anyway, because of his family's oil business. That's
Yeah.
what it was. I knew
He
I had
had
to,
family ties and business
yeah,
ties.
I had to get all four of them there. Um, This movie, out of all of these, watch it.
Yeah.
Definitely watch it. It's really, really good, and I think you will enjoy it. It's very good, wholesome fun.
Hmm.
Um,
This movie is
there's
very
some
wholesome.
very much so. The character Squirrel is so damn funny. He wants a girlfriend so bad, and some of the things he does in order to get the attention of a girl is so damn funny.
Keep in
Um,
mind, the population of this town is only 81 people.
Yes. Yes. Well, it is only 81 people. There are only three girls that are age appropriate for them, if I
Uh-huh.
recall correctly, and there's
Yeah.
four of them.
There's four of them.
And one of them is dating two of the girls.
Uh-huh.
Um, it's very funny. It's very touching. It's very funny. I cannot recommend Dancer Texas enough.
Yeah. Dancer
Great
Texas is
movie,
amazing.
great choice. Really good choice on all four of these to show growing up in Texas. I was a
Hmm.
little leery of this episode. I'm like, oh, am I going to like these movies or whatnot? Um, but bits and pieces of all of them really showcased what it was like for you and I to grow up in Texas. There was a
Yes, it did.
lot of what it was like for us to grow up in Texas, even though we grew up in a bigger town.
Yeah.
We were teenagers in Fort Worth, Texas.
Hmm.
Um, you white settlement, but still Fort Worth,
Yeah.
the Fort Worth the greater Fort Worth area. Um, even though we were in the bigger city and some of these are in the smaller towns, it was very, very much showcased what it was like to grow up as a teenager in Texas.
Yes.
Great,
Yes.
great
I mean, I'm
choices.
sorry you couldn't see Skateland because that one is my favorite in this list.
Yeah, and I want to see it.
Yeah.
The clips
But
gave me enough.
yeah, the number two is Dancer Texas. It's like
Yeah.
Skateland, Dancer Texas, Dazed and Confused. I probably rank the Last Picture Show a little higher than Dazed and Confused,
Hmm.
mostly because I like the music in it.
Hmm.
I like the I've heard all that old 70s stuff like a lot. It got overplayed. So especially right after that movie came out in the early 90s, everybody was all over it. It was like, I don't want to hear Slow Ride anymore. Play some old Hank Williams, please.
That's funny. Well, great stuff. I thanks for bringing this list to us.
Sure.
I hope everybody gets a chance um, to see the movies. Last Picture Show, see it once, just at least see it once.
It's beautiful shot.
Yeah, I don't have an urge to watch it again because it was too slow.
Mhm.
But the
Oh, you do
others,
get to see Sybil Shepherd in the buff when she's really young.
yeah, you do. Um, but great stuff. Good nostalgia for me. So I very, very much appreciate that. Um, excuse me. Oh, I'm gonna cough. Um, so with that, we will step over to the murdery side of the house.
Murder.
Before we get there, I have to mention this because I completely forgot to mention this. So we have a listener who works for this company called Magic Mind. Um, and after she's become a fan, and she went to somebody else at her company and said, "I love this show. We need to partner with this show." They reached out to me, and Magic Mind is this shot, a little bottle shot you take, and
Dude, show it.
I don't have one here with me. Shoot, sorry. Or otherwise I would show it on camera. I'll have to try to do that at some point. But throughout the years, I have taken, and I'm not going to give any names. I don't want to advertise for any other people here. But over the years, simply because number one, I don't sleep well. For years, it was because I had apnea. I do sleep with a CPAP now. That's helped with that. But I don't sleep very well. I get up and I do things. But anyway, I've lived off energy drinks and energy shots for years. There was a time period
Yeah.
I would drink and drink
Dear
and drink.
listeners, he gets 3 or 4 hours a night, or used to.
And that's about usually about what it is. Um, I get up middle of the night and I research stuff and I write. But anyway, so I've lived off this stuff for years. And the thing about um, the drinks and the shots years ago, I would drink those and I would get some energy for a while, and then there was a crash. They're also not really very good for you. I switched years ago to more um, more energy stuff that provided good vitamins and
Yeah.
minerals for you and everything like that. And again, those helped, but there was never really consistency. So anyway, so along comes Magic Mind. Um, and I got some of the Magic Mind shots. And the funny thing is the day that they arrived, that particular night, I had literally had like 2 hours sleep. It was a rough night. I'd had about 2 hours sleep, and I got up and I'm like, "Oh, Magic Mind's arrived. Great, I need to try this." I took my first bottle of it, the little shot bottle. I took that, and very, very quickly, I was wide awake. Matter of fact, I pinged Zig. I said, "Dude, I am wired for sound. I am ready to go."
Yeah, yes, you did.
I was awake. I was alert.
I
My
believe it was
mind.
wired for sound. This shit works.
Well, and I was very alert. I was very clear, and it lasted. I'm telling you, I didn't start feeling tired again for 6 or 7 hours. And when I say
Damn.
start feeling tired, I mean just kind of starting over the edge. With ones in the past, I would have that crash.
Yeah.
Once it was gone, it was crash.
It's like
No,
motherfucker,
this
I need to take a nap.
mm-mm, this is a very gentle, slow roll. And I was great. So I have been taking that every day. The normal stuff that I usually take, I haven't taken that in well over a week.
Hmm.
It's just the Magic Mind, one a day, every day. Um, it's awesome. I cannot stress how good this stuff is. It's a very easy uptick, and you don't have a crash at the end. And that's one of the big things that I noticed immediately about Magic Mind is the fact that you don't
No
have this
crashes.
crash at the end. It was wonderful. I cannot recommend this stuff enough. So we ended up partnering with them.
Hmm.
You can get discounts if you use the link. I will include the link on our website, but I'm going to give it here as well. If you go to www.magicmind.com/nerdery20, you can get discounted Magic Mind using that link. You can either do a one-time purchase or you can do a subscription, so that they send it to you every so often. I would highly recommend that subscription. I'm definitely going to be on that subscription. So, www.magicmind.com/nerdery20. Try Magic Mind. You will see the difference. You will absolutely see the difference. Give it a shot. It's a shot. And
Give
I think you'll see
it
these.
7. Do it once a day.
Do it once a day. These people have found the formula. Whatever it is, it's all natural, all natural vitamins and all natural ingredients. Excuse me.
Mushrooms and stuff. I'm assuming that's why they
Uh,
call it magic.
yes.
Yeah, some sort of mushroom.
I'd have to look it up to give you the exact ingredients, and I
Yeah.
apologize, I don't have that. But give that a shot. Use the link that I gave here, and I'll put it on our website as well. Um,
Yay.
so you can get a percentage off your order. But give it a shot. Let us know what you think about it. I think
Yeah.
you will be extremely happy with Magic Mind.
Sweet. Well, thank
So
you, Magic Mind.
thank you, absolutely, Magic Mind. Thank you. You have helped my sanity. I can tell you that for sure. All right. So for today, I got my information off Medium, Wikipedia, BBC News, and the Hein Online blog. And this is the story of Timothy Evans and John Christie.
Timothy Evans and John Christie.
So in 1953, a man who was renovating his new London apartment made a very shocking discovery. He was tearing down wallpaper in his kitchen and he uncovered a small hidden door behind it. What was beyond that door would horrify him, but it would also expose one of the most chilling cases of wrongful conviction in British history, and one that led to major reforms in the justice system. This discovery was directly linked to the tragic life of Timothy Evans, a man whose execution 3 years earlier had been a miscarriage of justice on an unprecedented scale. So Timothy John Evans was born in 1924 in the small town of Merthyr Tydfil, Wales,
It's
somewhere.
Welsh. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
okay,
Welsh.
which is why I can't pronounce it. From the moment he was born, life seemed to conspire against him. His father abandoned the family before Timothy was born, leaving his mother to raise him and his siblings in poverty. Timothy had an older sister, Eileen, who was born in 1921, and a younger half sister, Maureen, who was born in September 29. Timothy's mother did remarry in September of 33. But her living in poverty was just the beginning of a series of hardships that would shape Timothy's life. As a young boy, Timothy struggled to learn how to speak and found it difficult to keep up in school. His difficulties were exacerbated when, at the age of 8, he contracted tuberculosis of the skin on the underside of his right foot. And this wasn't fatal, but it caused large, painful blisters that made walking almost impossible, leading to extended absences from school. By the time Timothy would return to school, the gaps in his education were too large to overcome. His struggles with learning continued into adulthood, and his IQ was later measured between 60 and 70,
Oh,
which indicated significant intellectual disability. But to help his family, Timothy would take on jobs. He took on dangerous, low-paying jobs from a very early age, including working as a coal miner at the age of 13. Coal mining is rough. But his illiteracy combined with the frequent flare-ups of his foot condition meant he was often rejected for work or fired after only a short time. He would often need others to read lengthy documents to him, but he did possess some ability to read simple passages, such as in comics, newspaper football reports, and on his wages and receipts. By 1946, Timothy and his family had moved to London, settling in a poor, dangerous neighborhood. It was just over 2 minutes walk from 10 Rillington Place, which would be his future residence after he married. Timothy was fined 60 shillings at West London Magistrates Court on the 25th of April, 1946, for stealing a car and driving without insurance or a license. And it was during this time that Timothy met 18-year-old Beryl Thorley, who was a young woman like Timothy, who had a low IQ and shared a similarly difficult upbringing. They quickly bonded, and by the end of the year, they were married. Soon after that, Beryl became pregnant with their first child, and the couple scraped together enough money to move into a small, dilapidated apartment at 10 Rillington Place in Notting Hill, which I mentioned just a minute ago. Their daughter Geraldine was born in 1948, but the stresses of parenthood, financial insecurity, and their cramped living conditions quickly took a toll on their relationship, and the marriage rapidly deteriorated. Arguments became a daily occurrence, often escalating to physical violence, and neighbors frequently heard shouting and the sounds of physical altercations coming from the couple's third-floor apartment. Timothy, feeling the pressure of his failing marriage and inability to provide for his family, turned to alcohol for comfort. But alcohol only worsened the situation, draining what little money they had and further straining their volatile relationship. During this time, Timothy struck up an unlikely friendship with his downstairs neighbor, John Christie, who was a former police constable and war veteran. Christie was nearly twice Timothy's age, and he was a respected member of the community. He had served in World War I, surviving a mustard gas attack, and
Oh,
later worked
shit.
as a yeah, and later worked as a police officer before becoming a post office clerk. Despite their vast differences, though, Timothy looked up to Christie as a father figure, and the two developed a mentor-mentee relationship. Christie, aware of the couple's marital problems, offered Timothy advice and support, and Timothy, desperate for any guidance, latched on to this friendship. However, Christie was far from the trustworthy mentor Timothy believed him to be. In late 1949, Beryl became pregnant again, and this news pushed the couple over the edge. They could barely support their first child, let alone a second. Abortions were illegal in the United Kingdom at the time, and the couple had no idea where to turn, and it was then that John Christie stepped in with a proposal. Christie claimed to have some medical knowledge from his time in the military, and he offered to perform an illegal abortion on for Beryl in his apartment. Timothy believed this to be the only way out of their dire situation, so he eagerly agreed to the plan. He was unaware, however, that Christie had already murdered two women using similar methods, hiding their bodies in the backyard of the property.
Huh.
Beryl, not aware at all of the danger she was in, agreed to undergo the procedure. And sometime in September of 1949, Beryl and her infant daughter Geraldine went downstairs to Christie's apartment. Christie's wife Ethel was not home at the time, and Timothy was also absent. What happened next is uncertain. They're not really sure, but here's kind of the likely events of what happened. It's likely that Christie placed a device over Beryl's mouth and nose, telling her it would numb the pain during the procedure. But in reality, it was something to render her unconscious. Once she was sedated, Christie proceeded to assault and strangle her. And afterward, he went into the next room where baby Geraldine had been placed and strangled her as well. He wrapped their body in blankets and hid them in a shed in the building's backyard. When Timothy returned home, Christie delivered the devastating news that Beryl had died during the procedure. He assured Timothy that Geraldine would be taken care of, but Timothy needed to flee London immediately. So Timothy was panicked and overwhelmed, and he did as
As an
Christie
ex-cop, why would he lie about that? Because
exactly
his friend.
right, right. But Timothy did as Christie instructed, and he fled to Wales.
Hmm.
Once in Wales, though, Timothy's guilt over his wife's death became unbearable. He went to a local police station and confessed, partially. He believed Christie's version of the events, and Timothy told police that he had accidentally killed Beryl by giving her a substance meant to abort the pregnancy.
Hmm.
He also claimed to have disposed of her body in a sewer outside their apartment. However, when police searched the sewer, they found no trace of Beryl's body. Of course not.
She's not
She's not
there.
there.
Yeah.
Timothy was confused, though, and under pressure, and he changed his story several times, ultimately implicating Christie in the wife of his death. Police, however, dismissed Timothy's claims and focused solely on his inconsistent confessions.
They
These,
grassed him up. That's what
yeah,
the English call it when they plant evidence. They grassed his ass up.
well, here were his three confessions. Confession number one, on November 7th, Timothy met a man in a cafe who gave him pills that he claimed were abortifacients.
Abortifacient.
Thank you. There you go, that word. When Timothy returned home from work the next day, he discovered Beryl had taken the mysterious pills and died. He was afraid. He dropped her body in a drain outside his front door, sold their furniture for 40 pounds, left baby Geraldine in the care of some unnamed Good Samaritans, and lit out for Wales. London police were contacted to retrieve the body of Beryl Evans, but after searching the drain where Timothy claimed to have hidden her body, they found nothing. What's more, the manhole cover was so heavy it required three men to lift it, making it highly improbable that Timothy had been able to lift it on his own. Confession number two. Welsh police confronted Timothy with their lack of findings to corroborate his story, and Timothy then gave a second statement. He now claimed that there was never a man in the cafe, but Beryl had been pregnant and had been desperate to have an abortion. Their ground floor neighbor, a man named John Reginald Christie, became aware of Beryl's plight. He said he had trained as a doctor before World War II and showed Timothy a medical textbook as proof of his credentials, book which Timothy, of course, could not read.
Hmm.
Christie then offered to perform an abortion on Beryl. Timothy declined. Uh, Christie's offered help, but Beryl was adamant to proceed, so she and Christie scheduled the procedure for the next day.
Which
When
is what
Tim
happened.
Potentially,
Yeah.
when Timothy returned home from work on November 8th, John Christie was waiting for him at the bottom of the communal staircase, and he said, "It's bad news. It didn't work." And upstairs, Timothy found Beryl lying on their bed, dead, according to Christie, from septic poisoning. Baby Geraldine was alive and unhurt in her cot. Christie said he would get rid of Beryl's body while Timothy was at work the next day, having died during a legal abortion. The police would not know what had happened to Beryl. Christie would then send Geraldine to an unnamed couple in East Acton who would look after her. He advised Timothy to sell off her furniture to raise what money he could and then leave London, and in shock, Timothy did as instructed. Confession number three. On December 2nd, Timothy was transported to London as police searched 10 Rillington Place. In the outdoor wash house behind a stack of timber boards, they found the bodies of Beryl and Geraldine Evans wrapped in green tablecloth. There was no evidence an abortion had been attempted on Beryl. She and Geraldine had been strangled to death. And in the Notting Hill police station, Timothy was confronted with the tablecloth and the tie that had been used to strangle his daughter. This is when he made his third statement to police, in which he now claimed he and Beryl had gotten into a fight over money, and in a fit of rage, he strangled her with a piece of rope. He hid her body in the unoccupied middle flat, strangled Geraldine the following night, and then put both bodies in the wash house. So they
Why would he
base
confess to that? He
I
wasn't even there when it happened.
I know, but they said that he was confused and he was under pressure. So, like I said, he gave those three separate confessions.
Yeah, the middle one is closest to what actually happened,
And
supposedly.
that's the one police focused on was the middle state was the second statement. So police then performed a preliminary search of 10 Rellington Place, but didn't uncover anything incriminating, despite the presence of a human thigh bone supporting a fence in the tiny garden. It was about 16 by 14-foot fence.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. A human thigh bone
Yep,
supporting
supporting
the
a
fence.
supporting a fence post. Yep.
Nobody
Uh,
went, hey, I wonder where they got this from.
right. On a more thorough search on December 2nd, the police found the body of Beryl wrapped in the tablecloth in the wash house in the back garden.
Yes.
Access to the locked wash house was only possible by using a knife kept by Mrs. Christie. Significantly, the body of Geraldine was also found alongside Beryl's body. Timothy had not mentioned he had killed his daughter in any of his statements, actually. When Timothy was shown the clothing taken from the bodies of his wife and child, he was also informed that both had been strangled. This was, according to Timothy's statement, the first occasion in which he was informed that his baby daughter had been killed.
Hmm.
So he didn't know up to this point.
No, he thought she was living and acting.
Yep. He asked whether he was responsible for their deaths, or he was asked whether he was responsible for the deaths, to which Evans apparently responded, yes. He then apparently confessed to having strangled Beryl during an argument over debts and strangling Geraldine 2 days later, after which he left for Wales. And this confession, along with the other contradictory statements Timothy made during the police investigation, had been cited as proof of his guilt. There have been several authors who have written about the case who have argued that police provided Evans with all the necessary details for him to make a plausible confession, which they in turn edited further while transcribing it. So,
Ah,
um,
dressed him up.
uh-huh. So Timothy's trial was swift and deeply flawed. Despite his repeated accusations against Christie, the jury did not believe him. Christie and his wife Ethel were key witnesses for the prosecution. Christie denied that he had offered to abort Beryl's unborn child and gave detailed evidence about the quarrels between Evans and his wife. The defense sought to show that Christie was the murderer, highlighting his past criminal record. But Christie had previous convictions for several thefts and for malicious wounding. The latter case involved Christie striking a woman on the head with a cricket bat. But his
Damn.
yeah, but his apparent reform and his service with the police as a special constable may have impressed the jury. The defense could also not find a motive for which a respected person like Christie would murder two people, whereas the prosecution could use the explanation in Timothy's confessions as Evans' motive.
He's an axe murderer.
Unlike Christie, Timothy had no previous convictions for violence, although he had been fined for theft and motoring offenses. His conflicting statements undermined his credibility. Uh, Timothy was seen as a compulsive liar with a history of making up stories. The jury convicted Timothy of murdering his wife and daughter, and he was sentenced to death. On March 9th, 1950, Timothy Evans was executed by hanging at Pentonville Prison, and he maintained his innocence until the end. So, Timothy Evans' death might have ended this story, but 3 years later, in 1953, new tenants
Hmm.
moved into John Christie's former apartment.
Hmm.
And as we said at the beginning of the story, as they began to
Pulling
renovate the
wallpaper off the
kitchen,
wall.
pulling wallpaper, they discovered a hidden door. And what lay beyond was the final piece of the puzzle. Behind that door were the bodies of three women, all of whom had been strangled and hidden by Christie. A further search of the property revealed more bodies, including that of Christie's own wife, Ethel, who had been
Hmm.
strangled and buried in the floorboards. And Christie, it was now clear, was a serial killer who had preyed on vulnerable women, including Beryl Evans. Christie was arrested shortly after the discovery. During his trial, he confessed to the murders of Beryl and Geraldine, as well as six other women. In a grim twist of fate, Christie was found guilty of murdering his wife and was hanged on July 15th, 1953, by Albert Pierrepoint, who was the same hangman who had executed Timothy at the same prison
For
three
the
years
same
earlier.
crime.
Yes.
I
Um,
think it's shit like this is the reason why they don't have death penalty in England anymore.
right. Well, and you're absolutely right. This was a pivotal case for this. So the revelations around this, it sent shockwaves through the United Kingdom. Public outcry over the execution of an innocent man led to the intense scrutiny of the British legal system and the death penalty. In 1966, Timothy Evans was I can't pronounce the word, posthumously
Posthumously.
pardoned, officially recognizing his innocence in the murders of his wife and daughter. Mary Westlake, Timothy's half sister, spent decades campaigning to clear his name, winning a royal pardon for him in 1966. But his brother's convictions was still on the books at the time of at the time of death, at the age of 94, her death. The case played a pivotal role in the eventual
Abolition.
Abolition. Good Lord, what is wrong with me today? Abolition of the death penalty in the United Kingdom. So as you
It's
said,
usually me.
right.
So,
But yes, this was a key case in what abolished the death penalty in the United Kingdom. In 1965, the death penalty was suspended, and in 1969, it was permanently abolished. Um, this was one of the most tragic miscarriages of justice in British history. This was a man who was manipulated by a calculating serial killer, and he lost his life for crimes he didn't commit. Um, it, this not only exposed a monstrous murder, but it was a very good thing to overhaul the British legal system to try to prevent such an injustice from ever happening again. This was a very key case in this. Um, but that's the story of Timothy Evans and John Christie.
well, thank you, sir.
I
That
thought
was
that was a
awesome.
fascinating one.
Yeah, that was a good one. Well, I mean, it's not awesome that it's awesome that we figured it out.
Right, right. What I did think was very interesting is the fact that the same hangman
Yeah, hung them both.
hung both of them. Very sorry for Timothy on that, of course, because
Yeah,
it wasn't his fault.
yep, he didn't do anything.
He was wrongfully convicted, but I found it interesting that it was the same hangman in the
Same
same
dude.
prison. So yeah, so that's my story for this week. That will take us to the end of another recording week. As always, you can find more information about us on nerderymurder.com. I am behind on this website and I've got to get this caught up, but I'm working on it. But nerderymurder.com, that's our hub for everything we talk about. You'll find links to the episodes we talk about, pictures of things we discuss. Um, you'll also find the link to our YouTube page, which Zig so often updates.
Yeah, we should have some clips of those things, and as I find more stuff that we can actually put on there, I will. I just wanted to get good, decent quality clips
Yeah.
because these films deserve it. Every single one of these films is beautifully shot.
Yep. Thank you for all your work on that. You can also find the link to our merchandise page, where if you wish to show off your Nerdery and Murdy fandom, please do consider purchasing something from there. That, along with you can find the link to our Patreon, because our Patreons, along with our merchandise, do help us with the costs associated with the show. Our patrons feel that their duty to help keep us on the air, keep us going, keep our website going, keep our uploads, and everything that's associated with that. It does not go to fund our massive fleet of Lamborghinis and yachts and mansions and trips and everything like that. I promise it doesn't go to that, but we appreciate each and every one of you.
Please and thank you.
Please and thank you. And last but not least, please don't forget to leave a 5-star review wherever you can. It really helps us and helps others find the content that may be looking for the topics that we discuss. So with that,
I have been Zig with your nerdery.
and I'm Jeffrey with your murdering.
Cue the music.